Hello, my name is Amy Nat. I am the CEO of Aging Outreach Services, and this is All Things Aging. Today, I am being joined by Lynn Valliere. She is the Director of Sales and Marketing for Quail Village. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. How long have you been working in the senior living industry?
Oh, probably about close to 15 years now.
Wow. And what drew you to that?
I was a nurse.
Okay.
Yep. Did nursing skills and stuff in the inn.
Okay.
In the skilled area. And now I do the sales and marketing directing for the last 15 years.
Okay. Very nice. Well, thank you for joining us. We're going to talk today about what the benefits are of moving into a senior living community, how that works, what a person might expect, and just some general tips and knowledge that Lynn has gathered over the years. So we'll start with, how does a person, whether it's the older adult or a family, typically know if they're ready to make a move to a senior living community?
Usually what happens is a lot of times is the families come visit at a certain time with their loved one, and they notice a decline, whether they're not eating well or whether they're unable to drive or keep their finances in order or keep their house taken care of. You know, that's a lot of it. Yeah. And also they're not as social. They start to become withdrawn.
Okay. So those are all things that a person might notice.
Yes.
And explain the different types of, I know there's different levels of care and so forth, the different types of care that a person might get at a senior living community.
Depending on whether they're coming in for assisted living or independent living. If they're independent, we do offer, our senior caretakers that are there. They'll come in and help them just do their activities of daily living. If they go into assisted living, they have 24/7 care and all the meals provided. So there's like hands-on at that point.
So really at independent living, is that sort of like somebody moving in just to their own little apartment, but they're on campus?
Right. So they move into their own place on campus, but they have the support of the campus.
Okay.
Everything from the nurse to having somebody take them for their appointments.
So kind of a safety net if they need that.
And we also have, if they need anything, they can always call somebody at the front desk to support their needs. So there's always somebody there to support them on campus.
Okay. And versus somebody who's coming in assisted living, like what might be the difference in the person as far as like what their abilities are, who you say, okay, this person's independent versus this person who's assisted living?
If they need assisted living, you can really tell that usually sometimes they need memory support.
Okay.
And sometimes they're not able to make their meals or even walk the distance to get to the dining hall. Also, they can maybe need help taking showers.
Okay.
Everything from taking showers to getting
some more of those daily care.
Yes, the daily care that they need. Yeah.
And I know from working with older adults for many years, it's a big decision, right? When somebody's looking at leaving their home. And even though the family might see it, the person themselves.
That's the biggest task. That's the biggest task.
What goes into that decision-making process?
Usually what happens is we reach out to the doctor and we see what level of care the doctor feels that the person needs to be at this point. He will direct us in that point by filling out an FL2 if they need to go to assisted living. If they need to go to independent living, it's more like a physical form that we do. And then we do an assessment with our nurse on duty that takes care of independent living.
Okay.
And she will come in and also assess them to make sure that they're at the right level of care, whether they need to go to assisted or whether they can be in the community independently.
Are there things, how as an adult child or even a friend of someone who's the older adult, like, what type of conversation can you have with that person if they maybe don't see the deficit or not quite sure they're ready to leave home?
Usually we try to start them as early as we can. We try to get them in because it may take a couple years or longer for them to move from their home to coming into a community. It takes a lot sometimes because they may want to stay in their home longer, but their family may feel that they're unable to stay in their home due to, that they're not able to take care of themselves. They're not having socialization and things like that. So we try to start with the children. The sooner the better, to kind of help them along, to help the family, move them forward into a community.
And do you ever have I know there's times I've taken clients to go have lunch at the community or What's a good way for someone who had no exposure to any of these communities to kind of get a glimpse into what life might be like?
Well, a lot of times when they come in, they want to look at the community. I want them to come in for lunch. I want to spend some time with them and let them know what the community has to offer. And a lot of times too, we'll do things like events, which is a good way for them to come into the community and see the other residents. Right. Let me talk to the residents.
Yeah, that's
and get a
helpful.
feel for what we offer and how they're going to fit into that community if they are.
Okay.
That's another way. And another thing I offer is the weekends. They can come in the weekends and spend a weekend with us.
Okay.
And enjoy all the things on the community. And that kind of gives them another feel for that too.
So kind of a respite or short-term stay to see how things might work. You mentioned the primary care physician. And so that person is typically involved if someone's looking at making the move. You mentioned paperwork. Are there other things that primary care doctor does for the person or that's needed in order to enter a community?
Usually what he'll do is he'll talk to us also.
Okay.
And talk to the family. He'll meet with the family and he'll meet with the resident too and see if they're ready and see what they think that they need to have done and what we can do to help them, in the community.
Right.
And they may send them to us and say, this is what we need, or maybe they'll make us feel it out and see what they need.
Okay.
Because we're a little bit more hands-on. We're there every day. We're a small community. So we see our residents every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of people come straight from home into one of these communities, or are they coming from a hospital setting, or what do you typically see?
Usually, if they come from home, if they're independent, they're coming from home.
Okay.
And that's where, the kind of rub is, because a lot of times, like I say, just like all of us, we like to be in our homes as long as
It's hard to think of giving that
They
up.
worry about finances and if they're going to have enough money and how long that's going to take them. So they're hesitant to leave their homes.
Sure.
Plus, not only that, that is their safe zone. That's what they know. Going to another place, starting all over again at a certain age is very difficult, especially when you start looking at late 70s and
Right.
80s.
It's a big change.
They've been in the homes probably 30 years.
Yeah.
So they definitely don't want to leave their homes unless they absolutely have to.
I can understand that. What are those like financial aspects that somebody needs to look at if they're considering making a move to a community?
We talk to them about that. They should start as early as they can and try to figure out, what they have to do. Some people still owe mortgages on their homes. Some people have to sell their homes before they come.
Is it typically a like private pay situation, or is
It is private
a lot
pay.
of people think Medicare or some other insurance source?
No, it is private pay. We are a month-to-month rental. We are non-buy-in, so we don't have a huge fee to pay up front. We just do small deposits. And so it makes it pretty easy, and it's only a 13-month contract. So it's not very, like if something happens, it's not long-term that they feel like, God, we put all this money in, now we have to stay.
And that's something, definitely.
It has a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, and that differs in different communities. Like you said,
Right.
some of them may have that commitment or that large buy-in.
Right.
And others like Quail Haven, they can do that month to month. So
Right,
they could
and
try
it makes it more affordable.
short term.
Yeah.
Right, because they're
They
not
don't have
having to pay the big chunk
all their
up
money
front.
they may sold their home for. They don't have to take all that or their investments out and put that all up front. They can just do a short-term deposit, 13 months, and
I've had people keep their home, and like you said,
Yeah,
come for a weekend, come
absolutely.
for a month.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work for some reason, they don't feel like they've given up.
they didn't give up their home.
Yeah, everything. What do you think are some of the benefits to people that you've seen move into the community, even those that maybe were a little bit hesitant?
Yeah.
What do you see as the benefits?
Usually it takes them a while to kind of settle in, which they make that transition. It could be anywhere from weeks to a month or even longer. But usually we find that they become more socialized.
Okay.
Sometimes when they're at home and they're alone, especially if they lost their, spouse or whatever,
isolated.
they become very isolated. And they're not eating well, they're not getting out, they're not socializing, they're not doing activities and things like that. And that you'll see a big decline when they're at that point.
Right.
When they come in and they start doing things like that, come and socialize and just having a meal.
Yeah.
That's a social thing.
How do the meals work? So is it?
It's one meal a day that's included. They can take more meals if they'd like. They can come for lunch.
So there's a
they can
full
come for dinner.
dining service.
It's restaurant style. They have a full menu, and they can take from that. They can have it delivered to their home if they want to, but we really encourage them to come out to have that socialization.
Sure.
They eat better. They do better. A lot of them gain 10 pounds within short time.
because maybe at home they've already eaten. Yeah.
They're like, I didn't have this problem when I was home, but I like the desserts.
What about activities? What are some examples of different activities?
They do everything from on-campus to off-campus. Sometimes we'll bring music events on, dancing events on. Sometimes we take them to the movies. If they really find something they they'd like to do, they can sign up for that at any time, and we look into it and get them out in that. There's everything from bingo to card games to men's week. There's all kinds of things. They can usually find pretty much what they like.
Right.
And it keeps them pretty busy. And that's the whole purpose, to keep them very active.
Definitely.
So they keep moving forward.
And are you all able to provide, like if you're doing a group outing or something, are you providing transportation?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We transport people to their doctor's appointment on a regular basis. If they need to go shopping and get things for their refrigerators and things like that, we go out and do that. Errand days and things like that. If they really want to do anything activity-wise and they find something, we can take them out for that. So we do have transportation 24/7 in our community, just about.
That's nice. So you don't even have to worry about the car driving. You
Well, that's another thing that brings them to the. That's another thing that brings them in. You know, a lot of times as they get older, they get more skeptical about driving. Because
I'm skeptical about driving.
Right, because it's really busy around here.
Really busy.
So they have deficits in, hearing, maybe deficits in their sight. And so their reflexes aren't the same, of course. So they're really reluctant to drive. So that is one thing that brings them into community. It's just the transportation a lot of times. Yes.
Talk about so we talked about like leading up, they might visit, they might have a meal. There'd be conversations with the doctor, some paperwork, but talk about like what moving day typically looks like for somebody.
Everyone's different, to be honest.
Yeah.
Once they decide they're coming, they usually have 60 days to go ahead and take financial occupancy of their apartment. The moving day could be anything from the family moving them in to maybe they have transports coming in, and we set up, for that moving day. We all greet them. We go out and we make sure that they have everything they need. We set up their TVs. We set up their internet. We hang pictures. We do everything that they make them feel like they're at home as much as possible. So moving days are a big thing. We introduce them into the community. We make sure that they have somebody to eat with. So they're not coming in and being like
sitting at a table
by themselves, not knowing anybody. So we set that all up ahead of time so somebody can, meet them, another resident couple, if they're a couple or whatever, and they'll come in and they sit with them and they'll spend that time with them and show them kind of the ropes around,
Probably takes a little bit to get used to that.
So that works out really good.
And do you have tips for like setting up the room? How do you
I do. When I go in, I talk to them about, because they have a whole house.
Right. To get into one room or maybe,
Yeah. And so I talk to them about, well, maybe you might want to think about, what you're really going to bring, what you're going to pass on to your children. Are you going to plan to maybe do an estate sale? Are you going to meet with your real estate to do that? So I try to get that ahead of time. And I bring them in. We measure. We figure out what furniture they want.
So they can bring in some furniture if they want to do that.
Yeah. And that way they know where they're going to put things, and they know sometimes if they don't want to bring that. So we try to get that as much in order before ahead of time so that things kind of flow nice with by the time.
Yeah, and when you walk in, it feels or looks like home. There's some familiar things. I know that's going to be super helpful to the adjustment period. Obviously, we'd like to think everybody, makes a move and it's great. But I know in reality, there are people that there's challenges and sometimes there's obstacles. What are some of those challenges that you see people kind of having to work through?
Usually what happens for the challenges, I would say, that they have to work through, it's mostly the things that they think are important from their home. It's like they don't want to part with a lot of memorabilia and stuff like that, when really they don't really need a lot of it. Just bring the things that you really need and treasure, and make sure you pass on the rest of the things to your family. That is a big obstacle because they do want to bring so much more than what they really have room for. So that's one of the obstacles. The other thing that I find that when they do come in, they have an obstacle of, usually trying to get out and try to feel like they're comfortable. So that's where the residents can come in and welcome them in, and the staff can come in and make them feel like it's home, because it is a big obstacle. It is a big transitional period for them when they first get there.
Right.
Yeah.
And how does that work? So if somebody comes in and they come in independently to you all and they're there in your independent living, what happens when you all discover that they need a little more support or care?
Well, usually we send out the nurse. It's an independent nurse. She'll go out and she'll do an assessment on them, just like a level of care. Are they able to get dressed? Are they having difficulty taking showers? Are they unable to walk to the dining room? Things like that. So she will assess that, and she will bring that back to me, or she'll bring it back to the community and say, hey, look, maybe they need some more assistance. Can we bring somebody in? Or, can we bring agent outreach services in? We use you a lot. Or can we just use the 15, 20-minute nurse to come in and just help them through those things, medication assistance.
Right.
Sometimes they can't even give themselves their own medicines because they're having some memory issues. So we'll set that up for them so that way they don't have that to worry about.
Okay. So there could be a time they either could get more support in their independent living setting, or it may be transitioning them.
Yes.
Okay. To a different area.
Exactly.
So they can get more care. And if you have couples come in together, then they're together in the
independent living, yes.
Okay.
We do have couples that come in together.
Okay.
And, unfortunately, usually what brings them in a lot of times is one is not able to really do independent living, but the other one is able to support them.
Okay.
So that's how they come into independent living. Usually that's one of the things that does happen in independent living.
Okay. And at least even if they were in separate areas, they'd be on the same campus.
Right. And so they can visit. One had to go to assisted living, one stays independent. We see that sometimes later on down the road.
Yeah.
We have to do that. They still on the same campus. They can have meals together. They can share activities together. They don't have to get in their cars, maybe having difficulty driving. They can walk there, or we can assist them there. So it works out really well that they're all on the same campus.
Yeah, that is. What is, if families ask you for like your best advice or tips on navigating all this, what do you share with them?
I share that it's nice to be on a community that offers all level of care because, once you get there, people get to know you, whether you're in an independent living, or whether you're in assisted living or long-term care living, because it is a small community. It's only 80 beds for our independent living. So people that having that difficulty of maneuvering around a big campus, it's ideal for them. It's very intimate.
Get to know the staff.
You get to know the staff. You get to know even the workers that come in from maintenance. There's always somebody coming and going. So I think that makes it really unique too, because it is so small and intimate.
Yeah. And like you said, that sense of community that they can get, because none of us want to think about leaving home, but certainly there are circumstances where people need to. And like you said, they may not even realize the benefits of having nutritious meals and having activities and people to socialize with. So sometimes there are some unexpected benefits.
Yes, absolutely.
When a person moves in. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. That's very helpful tips and information for those that are considering making that move. So thank you very much. We'll be sure to link Quail Haven and your information in the bio so that people can access that if they'd like.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me.